Thanks for joining me today. Today I want to talk about something that I've talked about a lot in the past, but I never really went over how to go about doing it. And that is losing body weight while marathon training. I'm going to talk about why it's important and how to go about doing it. First of all, a lot of people think marathon training, you just get lean naturally, and that's not the case. Another misconception out there is that if I have done a long run, I can just go and eat anything I want. If your goal is to hit an aggressive time or, a specific goal target, it's really important to be conscious of what you're fueling your runs with and what you're fueling your recovery with and what your day-to-day nutrition looks like. Having a fueling strategy, having a nutrition strategy can be hugely beneficial. It's great knowledge to have anyway, but here's how we go about doing it when marathon training. First of all, let's look at the long, slow run. The long, slow run is all about oxidizing fat. We're looking to move the pace at which we're burning fat as fuel, okay? The long, slow run has so many benefits, but first and foremost is we're burning fat for fuel, okay? That is massively beneficial. When we're in our marathon race, we're going to be using more carbs than anything or more glycogen, but this is a great opportunity to move that fat oxidation um, threshold and get the benefits from losing the weight. It's also important to note that in a 16-week training block, we're not looking to be in a calorie deficit for all 16 weeks. The last 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to really fine tune our nutrition. But in the first 10 to 12 weeks, we're really going to focus on weight, body fat, and fueling properly. For me, the objective is to be in a calorie deficit most of the time. That means I'm going to eat really deliberately. I know what I'm going to eat. I know what my maintenance calories look like. I know what my goals for protein, carbs, and fats look like. And I'm going to try to keep that consistent. In the higher volume weeks, it means we're going to consume more calories, but we're also burning more calories so we can remain in that deficit. And that's a fairly straightforward thing to account for, right? It's key to keep track of your daily calories, protein, carbs, and fats. That way you know exactly how you're fueling. So let's start with tracking calories. I use MyFitnessPal. There's 100 other apps out there. It just makes it easy. You can scan barcodes, you can make your recipes, you can just make it very simple. One of the things that I do is I don't I don't mix up my breakfasts too often. I have something similar most days. I will switch it up now and again. Sometimes things aren't available, sometimes I'm away, but generally speaking, I'll have scrambled egg whites with a scrambled egg, some toast, maybe some cottage cheese, something that is really protein packed that'll get me, uh, keep me satisfied throughout the day. Now, if I have a long run, I'm going to start the day with a carb breakfast. It's different how I fuel my runs, but generally speaking, I try to keep it relatively consistent. It makes it simple. I've been tracking my calories for so long that I know what my RMR is, my resting metabolic rate, how many calories I burn through just by living without moving or exercising. And that's a really useful thing, but you can determine that relatively easy by tracking your calories and weighing yourself once a week. Uh, it's relatively simple. It's really important to get to know what your maintenance calories are, what your calorie deficits are, and that kind of thing, and then fuel to that. I like to look at a minimum of 25% of my calories from protein, and for me that's important, and maybe 50% from carbs, and that can be adjusted as we go. So what are some common mistakes? I can eat anything I want because I'm training a lot, right? That's You are going to eat more when you're in a high volume week, but you got to be deliberate about it and fuel your runs and your activities more so than your day. Okay, I can still maintain, my calorie deficit even on a day that I'm running, a 20 miler or a 32K. And I do that by having a good carb breakfast, carb focused breakfast, and plenty of protein, carbs, and fats after the run, uh, but maintaining an overall daily calorie deficit. It just takes a little bit of focus. Okay, another misconception is, uh, if we're in a calorie deficit, we can't eat enough to fuel our runs. Well, you absolutely have to. You have to consume enough carbs before your run. Even the night before, you should be focused on a carb heavy meal. Uh, and before a long run, I always suggest you be practicing your race day strategy. What meal are you going to eat on the Saturday night before your Sunday marathon morning uh, race? So start there. Then your carb focused breakfast. What are you going to eat race day morning? Practice that, right? That amount of calories. How do you feel eating that specific meal with that amount of calories? Hydration, coffee, anything like that. And then you'll also be practicing your gel strategy. What are you eating on the course? So you're fueling the run, right? And then when you get home, you finished your run, you're going to have your high protein with carbs and healthy fats. Uh, get that into you quick, and enough so that you are getting the recovery, you're getting the fuel for the run, and you're getting your recovery into you as soon as you can. But then you're going to ease off, uh, and allow your body to do what it needs to do. Another thing to be careful of is cutting too aggressively. It's one thing if you're not particularly active, but if you're cutting calories and your deficit is way too big, you're going to notice even your slow runs are going to be hard, right? And that's not the objective. The objective is to move that slow run, to move that threshold run, to move race pace as you get through your training so that it's faster and it feels easier. I like the steady effort. I track steady effort, that comfortably hard pace that I like to see coming down faster and faster as I go. And that pace should become easier and easier, and that should be a real rhythm as I go. And as I get lighter but maintain muscle mass, that is absolutely the case. I am getting faster while maintaining muscle. And I suppose that leads to the last misconception, is that, cutting body weight is the same as cutting body fat, and it's not. You have to maintain strength and conditioning exercises throughout your training block, right? Muscle mass, that's where your glycogen is stored. Just dropping body weight isn't the objective. The objective is to drop body fat and maintain muscle. I know muscle weighs more than fat, so you'll look a good bit leaner, but your weight might be the same. You will see the difference. Uh, you will see the body fat coming off, and you will remain strong, and the weight will be coming down. But it's key to keep up the strength and conditioning work. So, what does the strategy look like? For me, I'm looking to be 200 to 400 calories in a deficit every day. Now, that again doesn't mean I'm a 200 to 400 calorie deficit in my fueling of my runs. It's over the course of the day. I'm still fueling my runs, and I'm doing it strategically. How do I do that? By increasing my protein profile outside of my runs, specifically after my runs. If I only have a short, slow recovery run, I'm not too concerned about carving up for it. Also, if I'm not running till later in the evening, I'm not going to worry about, carving up my breakfast. I'll have a protein packed breakfast that'll keep me satisfied for, until lunchtime. And then I'll start thinking more about my carbs. And that's where you can be a little bit more creative and, vary it up a little bit. The other thing, so I'm looking at really focused on protein a lot more than I would if I was not in a training block. So a 200 to 400 calorie deficit. So 200 calories is, you could have a handful of almonds and that could be 200 calories. It's not a lot. You're not sacrificing a lot with 200 calories. 400 calories adds up quickly, and reducing your daily intake by 400 calories can be as simple as making one or two decent decisions, and not even hard decisions, just cutting back on the picking, the grazing, and being more specific about what you're eating. And this doesn't have to be all willpower, and I have to be, 100% of the time massively focused on everything, and I'm never going to enjoy any meal. Think about it. Be practical. I don't. I don't sacrifice anything. I eat what I like. Uh, I just do it within reason. And if I'm going to have something that, is as a treat, I'll just put that in the plan, and I will think about what I'm going to eat a little bit more consciously. For me, one of the things that I do is I will write down what I'm going to eat the following day. So even in my Fitness Pal, I will just create my meal plan for the following day, even for the week, so that I know what I'm going to eat. I don't get into that. I don't put myself in the position where I don't know what I'm going to do, and I get hungry and I don't have anything to hand, and I make bad decisions. I don't put myself in that position. I know what I'm going to eat. I know it's going to be available, and that's what I do. And it just makes life a whole lot easier. And it's not a miserable life. A lot of people would say I'm a miserable person. I don't think I am. I think I'm relatively, easygoing, and I'm conscious of what I'm doing. So how do you know it's going well? So, like I said before, I weigh myself every Friday, first thing in the morning, before I eat anything. I try to get to the point where I've gone to the bathroom. I'm in the same situation as I am every Friday morning. It doesn't always work out, but you'll get a generally good idea whether you're losing weight or maintaining or adding weight. And that's a key indicator. How are you sleeping? Are you eating enough that your body is able to adapt to the changes, and are you comfortable enough that you are able to sleep well? Sleep is always a key indicator for everything in life, whether it's stress, and that stress can come from under eating. So sleep is another key. HRV and resting heart rate are key indicators. I love to track my resting heart rate, my average daily resting heart rate for the week. I like to see that come down. When I get to the point where I'm around, a specific number, I'm a lot more comfortable that things are in a good, healthy place. And that's going to be different for everybody. So I'll not get too specific about what works for me. It has to be the right. It has to be right for you. HRV is another one of those. You want to see that climbing, right? And if it's not, and all of the other indicators are going against you, that can be another indication that you're not fueling enough. But ultimately, it comes down to the scale, right? And it's not going to move day to day, and it may not move week to week depending on what your training volume was, and the time of day that you've been eating, how you're feeling. Sickness and illness, it can really affect how your body uses the food you give it. So it's really a trend. You want to see it trending down throughout the 16-week block. Now, I suppose you don't want to see it trending down all 16 weeks, but probably for the first 12 weeks anyway. For all the over 40s marathon runners, whether you're running your first marathon, you've been chasing a time, you've been dealing with injuries, I have a 100% money back guarantee coaching program for you. It's called the Guaranteed Marathon Result, and I can offer you this with confidence.
It's a program that I've been using for years. I just ran my 44th marathon at the age of 57. I ran my fastest marathon at the age of 55. This system works, keeps you injury free, keeps you strong, keeps you running, keeps you enjoying the sport. I have a few openings available, so look me up on jmruncoach.com. I have a few other openings for my other coaching packages as well. Let me know your thoughts, and I hope to be hearing from you soon.
When it comes to the race phase, which is the last 4 to 5 weeks, when we're really getting race specific with our training, we are getting really honed in on our race fueling strategy. Everything is based around how we're going to attack the race. We're going to be a little bit less concerned about a calorie deficit. We certainly don't want to be in a calorie surplus uh, in this period. A good maintenance is good because you've worked so hard to get into a proper race weight that you don't want to throw it out the window now. It's possible to drop, a good 10 pounds, 5 kilos throughout the course of a 16-week block and remain good, strong, and healthy. Uh, Maybe even a little bit more or a little bit less, but it's not only possible, but it's advisable for me. Unless you start out in a really good race weight. If you're at race weight, you don't need to worry about it, right? Knowing your ideal race weight is such a powerful thing because then once you hit it, you don't need to worry about remaining in a calorie deficit. So there's an argument to be slightly under race weight so that you can carb load uh, in with a strategy. I'm not a huge fan of these massive generic carb loading um, strategies. You need to know what your carb load is, what your ideal carb load is, because if you are consuming more carbs that your body can't absorb because you don't have enough muscle mass to to gain that super compensation that you get with a carb load, then you're just wasting calories, you're adding fat. You don't need that, right? And you'll not feel well on race day if you're overfueled, specifically if you're over carbed up, because as the saying goes, the more you carb load, the more you have to carb unload. I firmly believe a strategic carb load is far more appropriate and beneficial than a generic, 800 grams of carbs per day for the last, 2 days. We can talk about that in another video. I think I have actually, but we're getting into the last, 4 or 5 weeks, being a little bit more strategic for race day in particular. So that's where I would cut it off. How do I find my maintenance weight? That's a real simple thing, right? Um, just day by day, just see how it goes. More appropriately, maybe week by week. It's very easy, right? If you are keep it consistent. So if you think your maintenance calorie intake is, say, 2,400 calories, eat 2,400 calories every day for a week and see what your weight is. Weigh yourself at the beginning of the week and weigh yourself at the end of the week uh, at the same juncture in the day. So first thing in the morning, before or after you go to the bathroom, before you drink anything, before you eat anything, you know, keep it consistent. And, within a couple of weeks, you're going to know what your maintenance calorie intake is. And once you know that, you can work on calorie deficit, calorie surplus, and um, it's a powerful thing to have. And the more you track your calories during the day, the more you know that when you reach for something, what effect it's going to have on your daily nutrition, right? That's so at that point, you probably don't even need to track every day if you know how much a tin of tuna has, how much protein a tin of tuna has, or how much protein uh, chicken fillet has, or how much carbs is in a bowl of cornflakes, Rice Krispies. These are real powerful things, and they're, the more you know, the more you know. The more you know, the more power you have over your nutrition and your fueling strategies. On top of all of this, I suppose the most important thing is to maintain muscle mass. So stick with the strength and conditioning. For me personally, I do a 20 to 30 minute body weight workout every day, 5 days a week, and that maintains my muscle without requiring a huge amount of protein and more calories than I want to have. It's just a very simple way to keep the simple things easy. It never feels like a burden. It never feels like I have to put on my gym clothes, drive half an hour to the gym, spend an hour in the gym pushing heavy weights, which sometimes you just don't feel like doing. A 20 to 30-minute home-based bodyweight workout never feels like a burden. And so I just do it every day and it's fine. That's important just in itself, because I'm maintaining my muscle. I'm not packing on muscle. Not that I could if in 16 weeks anyway, but I'm maintaining the muscle mass that I have, uh, which is a really key thing, especially for a man my age at 57 going on 58. Muscle mass is hugely important outside of running, but it's really important for a marathon runner to maintain muscle mass. When you look at the top runners, you don't see anybody carrying excess body fat, but you also don't see anybody that isn't lean, isn't filled out with lean muscle, right? They are really well built. So to wrap it up, Marathon Training Block is an unbelievably good opportunity to lose body fat, to get faster, to get leaner, and to have a fantastic race, a once in a lifetime marathon achievement. This is one of the key elements to hitting your goal. Calorie deficit, strength and conditioning, and fueling your runs and your recovery. 3 of the keys. Go get it, and let's see how well you do. All right, I will see you in the next video. Thanks for sticking around.